And these chemicals spike at all at the same time across the state of California for the most part, except in wells, which may not have influences from airborne sources. These spike, and they go up way above state and federal standards, and we have graphed many, many of them, and we have the data for all the tests. So we began to see these unusual spiking in toxic chemicals and wondered if that some of this could be employed in atmospheric programs.
Now, you just talked about these things. Aren't these the same type of chemicals that you're seeing spiking that are also used in geoengineering?
Well, they're used in geoengineering, and they're used in atmospheric heating and testing programs where canisters loaded with these chemicals are delivered up into the atmosphere by the space shuttle and rockets. And these canisters contain barium or trimethyl aluminum, lithium, uranium, strontium, a whole variety of chemicals. They're superheated. Once the canisters are released at a certain height, they're superheated, and then chemical reactions take place. And we think a lot of the chemicals that are coming down and spiking in our water and air supplies are actually from these sources.
Now, what I found really bizarre and what you pointed out, and you took us on all these trips, was that we were seeing a lot of tree degradation, and oftentimes when these trees would be right by a body of water, literally right next to water, should be getting all the nutrients in the world. We're also going to take calls for Rosalind. It's 888-201-2244. That's 888-201-2244 coming up in the next segment. But I was shocked to record and photograph all these trees that were turning brown on top, that were thinning out, that had moss all over them. Why don't you describe this phenomenon and when you started seeing it?
Well, in the mid-1990s, I started to see a little bit of tree decline on my property where I live, and we have many varieties of trees on the property. And then when I really got into this project in 2002, one of the things that I found was that there was tree deaths all over Mendocino County, Lake County, going up into Sonoma County and other Northern California counties over in Redding. And the tree deaths were stunning, and the range of trees. In other words, it wasn't one variety of trees, it was many. It was the redwoods, the oaks, it was the Doug fir, the manzanita, and the list goes on and on. And I began to think that there might be a correlation between the massive tree deaths, even tree deaths in Arizona and other areas. In other words, we began to find that there were tree deaths all over the United States. So I began to think that there might be a correlation between the tree deaths and what was going on in the atmosphere. And one of the things that I noticed was that there was an increase in aluminum in water and air spikes throughout California. And aluminum and increasing pollution in the soil can make aluminum available to tree root systems. And once available to tree root systems, it can starve in the uptake of the aluminum, it can starve the trees of nutrients and water that it needs to survive. So even if a tree is in water, the root systems cannot take up enough in order to feed the tree, and the tree will look like it's dying of drought when in actuality it's dying because the root systems no longer function properly. So I became concerned about aluminum and some other chemicals showing up in the trees as well, and thinking that maybe the cloud cover, the man-made cloud cover produced by the jets, could be lowering the amount of sunlight reaching the earth. And also this could disrupt the photosynthesis process so that the trees wouldn't have enough strength to grow strong and tall, and it might be weakening them. So there could be several different things happening all at once. But we really started documenting the first declines that have now proved out to many of the trees are dead that we first saw that were declining or been cut down. And we're finding that this is happening all over the United States and in many areas. And so we're concerned that the jets might be impacting this particular series of problems that are being seen all over the United States, including Alaska.
Now, what's the response been when you've given people this research and information?
People are very surprised. but government agencies and people that should be protecting our natural resources have resisted investigating the subject. They don't want to touch it. And the reason that they don't want to touch it is that they've heard that, the jets are part of a conspiracy theory, and they're afraid that if they touch this conspiracy theory, as they call it, they will lose their jobs, or they're told not to talk about it. So I think that, in some sense, there's been a push to keep this subject into a conspiracy theory mode and not begin to talk about what we're really seeing and the facts of what we can prove.
And what representatives have you brought this information to? In other words, who have you said, hey, obviously you've been to your local representatives, but on a larger scale, who are you mailing pamphlets to? And, how can they ignore this? I couldn't believe how many trees were just dying.
U.S. Congressman Mike Thompson won't take a tree tour with us and ignores the issue. Senators Boxer and Feinstein don't want to talk about it, and they ignore the issue. We haven't been able to get any of our elected officials, and many people have tried in other states as well, not only at the local level, but the state level and the federal level, to get our elected officials to address this. And the news media doesn't address it or gives the pat answer that all of this is happening due to climate change or drought or bugs. And they don't really want to get into the issues of what's happening in the environment, the chemicals that are now we're being exposed to, and also just the lack of direct sunlight that's reaching us. So
well, it seems to me like they're going to position themselves as this is what global warming is doing. Look around us, you know what I mean?
Yes, I think that that's what it is, because then they have an out. Well, there's nothing we really can do. We can, put a cap-and-trade energy bill in or something, and but there's nothing we can really do about it because it's global warming. But I think that this has become the catch-all phrase. I don't believe a word of it, because I think that the impact that we're having on the environment from our atmospheric heating and testing program and from the jets leaving persistent contrails are really a major cause, and no one is investigating.
All right, we'll be back after this. It's the Infowarrior with Jason Bermas.